The prison phone stopped working. At the same time, inside a high-security facility in the United States, Officer Marcus Hill stared at the control screen. "All lines are down," he asked. A technician nodded quickly. "Every single one." Marcus frowned. "That's not possible. Because in a place like this, nothing failed all at once. Everything had backups. Everything had systems. But right now, nothing was working." Marcus grabbed his radio. "Control, confirm communications outage." Static. No reply. That was the first moment something felt wrong. Because Control always answered. Always. Marcus stepped out into the hallway. The prison felt different. Too quiet. Inmates stood at their cell doors. Watching. Not shouting. Not complaining. Just watching. Like they already knew something. Marcus walked forward slowly. "Lock down," he called out. But no doors moved. No alarm sounded. Nothing changed. Behind him, another officer whispered, "Why aren't the systems responding?" Marcus didn't answer, because he was starting to understand something. This wasn't a failure. This was control, but not theirs. Then, a voice came from one of the cells. "Calm. Clear. You won't get a response." Marcus turned. An inmate stood there. His name was Ethan Cruz. Marcus knew him. Quiet. Smart. Never caused trouble. "What did you say?" Marcus asked. Ethan didn't move. "Your systems aren't down," he said. "They are being used." Marcus felt a chill. "By who?" Ethan gave a small smile. "Not from here." Marcus stepped closer. "What does that mean?" Ethan leaned slightly forward. "It means this place isn't just a prison." Marcus frowned. "Of course it is." Ethan shook his head. "It's part of something bigger." Marcus's grip tightened on his radio, because now, this wasn't just about one building. This was something else. Something connected. And just as Marcus opened his mouth to speak, every cell door in the hallway unlocked at the same time. A loud click echoed through the prison, one after another. Then silence. No one moved. Not yet. Marcus stood frozen, because that was not supposed to happen. Ever. And just as the first inmate slowly pushed his door open, the lights flickered. 2 weeks earlier, everything had looked normal. Marcus Hill had worked in prison for years. He knew routine. He trusted routine. Because routine meant control. Every morning started the same. Count. Movement. Meals. Work. Lock-in. Repeat. Nothing unusual. Nothing out of place. Until he noticed something small. Inmates using the phones more often. Not unusual. But the timing was strange. They didn't use them randomly. They used them in patterns. Certain times. Certain groups. Marcus stood near the phone area one afternoon. Watching. Listening. One inmate finished a call. Another stepped in immediately. No delay. No confusion. Like they were following a schedule. Marcus wrote it down. Because small things mattered. The next day, the same pattern. Different inmates. Same timing. Same order. Marcus spoke to another officer, Ryan Cole. "You notice anything weird with phone usage?" Marcus asked. Ryan shrugged. "People make calls." Marcus shook his head. "Not like this." Ryan looked at him. "What do you mean?" "They're organized," Marcus said. Ryan laughed lightly. "You're reading too much into it." Maybe he was. But Marcus trusted patterns. And this one didn't feel random. Days passed. More small signs appeared. Inmates talking less loudly. More quietly. More carefully. Like they didn't want to be overheard. Marcus walked past a group one evening. They stopped talking immediately. Not unusual. But the way they stopped. At the exact same time. That was unusual. Marcus paused. Then kept walking. But now, he was watching more closely. One night, during a late shift, Marcus checked the camera feeds. Everything looked normal. But then, one screen flickered. Just for a second, then returned. Marcus leaned closer. "What was that?" he muttered. He replayed the feed. Nothing. No clear issue. But he knew what he saw. A delay. A glitch. Small. But real. He reported it. Maintenance checked. No problem found, they said. Marcus nodded. But he didn't forget, because patterns mattered. A few days later, he spoke with Ethan Cruz for the first time. Ethan stood near his cell door, calm, watching. "You've been paying attention," Ethan said. Marcus frowned. "To what?" Ethan tilted his head slightly. "The changes." Marcus didn't respond. Ethan continued. "You see it, don't you?" Marcus crossed his arms. "See what?" Ethan gave a small smile. "How things move here." Marcus shook his head. Everything followed procedure. Ethan's smile didn't change. Not everything. Marcus held his gaze, because now he wasn't sure. Later that night, Marcus walked the hallway again. Everything looked normal, but felt different, like something was happening just beneath the surface. Something quiet, something organized. The next day, the phone stopped working. The systems went silent. The doors unlocked. And now, standing in the hallway, watching inmates slowly step out of their cells, Marcus will realize something he should have seen earlier. This wasn't just a prison problem. This wasn't just inside these walls. This was connected from somewhere else, somewhere far away, and whatever had just started, it had been planned long before anyone noticed. No one rushed. That was the first thing Officer Marcus Hill noticed. The cell doors were open. The locks had failed. But the inmates, they didn't run. They didn't shout. They stepped out slowly, calm, like they had been waiting for this exact moment. Marcus stood still in the hallway, heart pounding. "Everyone back in your cells," he ordered. No one listened. Not because they were being loud, but because they were following something else. Something stronger than his voice. Marcus turned to the other officers. "Close the doors manually." One officer ran to the control panel. "Press buttons." Nothing happened. "They are not responding," he shouted. Marcus clenched his jaw, because now it was clear. This wasn't just a system failure. This was control from somewhere else. Then Marcus looked back at Ethan Cruz. Ethan stepped out of his cell slowly, not rushing, not nervous, just calm. "You said this would happen," Marcus said. Ethan nodded. "I said you wouldn't be in control." Marcus stepped closer. "Who is?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He looked down the hallway, at the other inmates, then back at Marcus. "You're looking in the wrong place." Marcus frowned. "What does that mean?" Ethan leaned slightly closer. "It means this didn't start here." Marcus felt that again, that cold feeling in his chest. Because if it didn't start here, then where did it start? Before he could ask again, a loud metallic sound echoed from deeper in the prison. A door, a big one, opening. Marcus turned quickly. What was that? No one answered, but everyone heard it. Another officer spoke. That sounded like the main block door. Marcus's eyes widened. That door is always locked. Ethan shook his head slightly. Not today. Marcus looked at him sharply. What did you do? Ethan didn't react. I didn't do anything. Marcus stepped forward. Then who did? Ethan's voice stayed calm. People who aren't inside this building. Marcus froze, because now it was becoming clear. This wasn't just happening inside the prison. This was being controlled from outside, from somewhere else, somewhere connected. Marcus grabbed his radio again. External units, respond. We have a breach. Static, then a broken voice. Systems compromised, communications unstable. Marcus lowered the radio slowly, because that meant one thing. They were cut off, completely. Then something changed. The inmates stopped moving. At the same time, all of them, just like that. Silence filled the hallway again. Heavy, controlled. Marcus looked around. What's happening now? Ethan smiled slightly. Now they're listening. Marcus frowned. Listening to who? Ethan tilted his head. You'll see. Then, from somewhere in the prison, a voice echoed through the loudspeaker system. Clear, calm, not rushed. Stay where you are. Marcus's eyes snapped upward. That's not control, he said, because he knew every voice that worked here. And this wasn't one of them. The voice continued. This is temporary. Do not resist. Marcus's heart pounded, because that voice wasn't from inside the prison. It was coming through the system, from somewhere else. He looked at Ethan again. You knew this was going to happen. Ethan didn't deny it. I knew it was possible. Marcus shook his head. No, this is planned. Ethan nodded. Yes. Marcus took a step back. Why? Ethan looked down the hallway, then said something simple. Because control isn't always where you think it is. Marcus didn't respond, because now he understood something important. This wasn't about breaking out. This wasn't about chaos. This was about control, and someone else had it. Then, another sound, from outside the building. Loud, heavy, like something moving through the perimeter. Marcus turned toward the exit doors. What is that? One officer ran to the window, looked out, then froze. What do you see? Marcus asked. The officer didn't answer right away, then said quietly, Vehicles. Marcus stepped forward. How many? The officer shook his head slowly. Too many. Marcus felt the weight of that, because that meant this wasn't just inside. This was outside too. Connected, coordinated, from one side of the border to the other. Marcus looked back at Ethan. You said this didn't start here. Ethan nodded. It started a long time ago. Marcus asked, Where? Ethan's eyes met his. Outside this country. Marcus's chest tightened, because now the full picture was forming. This wasn't just a prison issue. This was something crossing borders, from one place into another, using systems, using people, using control. And now it had reached here, inside this prison. Marcus turned back toward the hallway. The inmates were still standing still, waiting, listening. The voice over the speaker returned. Remain calm. Follow instructions. Marcus stepped forward. No, he said firmly. We're not following anything. But his voice felt small, because the system was no longer his. Then, the lights flickered again. Stronger this time. Longer. The building shook slightly. And for the first time, some inmates looked unsure. Not all of them, but some. Marcus noticed it immediately. What was that? One officer whispered. No one knew. Even Ethan looked slightly confused now. That was new, because Ethan had been calm this whole time. Until now. Marcus stepped closer. What just happened? Ethan didn't answer right away. He looked toward the far end of the prison, then said quietly, That wasn't part of the plan. Marcus felt a sudden shift, because if something wasn't part of the plan, then something had gone wrong. Outside, another loud sound echoed. Closer, much closer. The walls trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. And now, everyone was listening for a different reason. Not because they were being told to, but because they didn't know what was coming next. Marcus looked at Ethan one more time. Who's really in control now? Ethan didn't smile this time. He didn't stay calm. He just looked toward the sound and said nothing, because whatever had just started was bigger than all of them.